Johnson looked at Merlin and thought that he defeated the sea monster with a single strike, so he need to ditch him soon, as Merlin is a troublesome competitor. At the same time, Cecilia was worried, as she has a bad feeling. But Alice tells her to stop scaring herself. She said, no matter who the enemy is, Merlin will take care of them. Suddenly, Merlin stepped on something, causing Alice and Cecilia to fall into a trap. Merlin then heard Alice and Cecilia shouting that the water is so cold, and even there are rats. He also noticed that Johnson ran off, so he ordered Kyle to follow him. Kyle was hesitant to leave Cecilia behind, but Merlin tells him to not worry, as Alice was with her. At the same time, Alice and Cecilia were looking for an exit. After walking for a while, they find a passage. As the two were walking inside that passage, they heard a strange scream. They then noticed a giant vulture that was eating a human. Cecilia suggested Alice to run away when Alice noticed something. She noticed some humans who were still alive and was waiting for their death. Alice then created a sword out of ice and attacked the vulture. But the sword had no effect on its hard skin. Alice then told Cecilia that she can't abandon the survivors, and according to her, the only way out of there is through that opening above the bird's nest. Alice dashed towards the vulture and asked Cecilia to cast a shield on her. But Cecilia was too frightened to move, and the bird attacked her. Meanwhile, in some other place, Johnson was circling around and thought that it's because of the alchemist's magic. But in reality, he was just lost, as Democritus was losing his patience, so he decides to help him a little and opened a path for Johnson. Johnson knew this was an invitation for him, but he still entered. At the end of the passage, he finds a coliseum. Johnson then heard someone saying, "So you are the genius magician." He looked behind and found Democritus standing on the wall. Johnson smiled after looking at the alchemist and attacked him. But to Johnson's surprise, Democritus easily blocked his attack and summoned an alchemy beast. Democritus then called the other beast and introduced them as the two-headed Lion King and the Great Mammoth. He laughed and told Johnson that he also has a steel vulture, and all these beasts were created from Saint-ranked dragon blood. Both beasts attacked Johnson, but he used his strongest spells to defeat the beasts. But to his surprise, even his strongest spells couldn't defeat the beasts. The beasts then charged at him, and even though Johnson tried to defend himself using his magic, the beasts managed to injure him. And as Democritus was about to kill Johnson, he heard Merlin's voice saying he's right on time. Merlin smiled and asked Johnson, how does it feel like to get taught a lesson after ditching them? He then jumped down and said that it's time to get his rewards. But Johnson sealed Merlin and Kyle inside his holy cage. He said that he is not defeated yet, and he will never allow anyone to steal his prey. Merlin looked at his confidence and realized that Johnson has a trick up his sleeve. Johnson then removed his jacket and showed his full power, but Democritus still laughed and ordered his beasts to attack Johnson. Meanwhile, Alice was in a hard battle with the steel vulture. Alice knew that with her current level, she couldn't defeat the vulture, but still, she couldn't leave the survivors. Cecilia then used her magic and cast a healing and defensive spell on Alice. Alice tried to attack its wings, thinking she will decide this in one strike. But before her attack could reach the vulture, it attacked Alice and managed to knock her down. It captured her in its claws and was about to kill Alice. Alice refused to die, as she didn't even defeat Merlin yet. The vulture attacked Alice, but Alice grabbed its beak and freezed it completely. Cecilia couldn't believe her eyes and wondered if this person was still Alice, because it's almost like as if a giant dragon were in front of her. At the same time, Johnson was still fighting with the alchemy beasts, but none of his attacks were enough to kill them. Kyle was shocked, as Johnson was using saint-level spells of all the elements. He asked Merlin to hurry up, or Johnson will steal their reward. But Merlin tells him to not worry, as the alchemy beasts were specially designed to counter magic. Merlin and Johnson both knew that as a magic user, the only way you can win is to break through with the strongest spell. Johnson didn't want to accept defeat, so he used all of his power to combine two ultimate spells. The beasts sensed the danger and dashed toward Johnson, but it was already too late. The attack hit the beasts and managed to kill them. Even Democritus couldn't believe his eyes, as there's no way someone can combine ultimate spells. The only thing that's left after Johnson attack were the skeletons of the beasts. Merlin thought that even though Johnson is strong for a 14-year-old, but still that's not enough. Johnson used all of his power and thought he won, but to his surprise, the beasts recovered again. Democritus laughed and explained that his alchemy beasts can sustain any damage and immediately come back to life. Johnson used all of his power that even the magical ring got cracked. He gets on his knees and realized that he's going to die. Democritus was still laughing and said that he has been waiting to see the look of despair on Johnson's face. As Johnson was thinking that he really is going to die, Merlin patted his head and said, "Children's playtime is over, so let an adult handle things." Democritus laughed at Merlin and said that he's not even fit to become snack for his. Before he could finish his sentence, his face got cut by something. He looked at Merlin, who killed his alchemy beasts with a single strike. Scared, Democritus ordered the steel vulture to help him. But to his surprise, he felt that the steel vulture is afraid of something. The vulture was trying to run away from Alice, but she killed it in a single strike. Democritus was shivering, as he couldn't believe that the opponent's dragonic strength surpassed the vulture's. Merlin heard dragonic strength and wondered if that was Alice. Democritus shouted that his beasts far exceeded the saint rank, so who is Merlin and how could he defeat them so easily? Merlin replied that to show his gratitude for allowing him to kill Democritus, he will tell him. He then announced that he is the demon king of the first demon palace, the ruler of pride, Merlin Lucifer III. At the same time, Cecilia and the other people were celebrating their victory. Suddenly, Alice fell to the ground and her pendant also broke. Meanwhile, Kyle, Johnson, and Democritus were shocked to know about Merlin's true identity. Democritus shouted at Merlin and called him fake, as he doesn't even look like a demon, let alone emit a demonic aura. Kyle asked Merlin to stop making these kinds of jokes, because if the church overheard this, he will receive the death penalty. Merlin sighed, as this world is hopeless. He then introduced himself again as Wrexham's Black Iron Adventurer, the no-regret gambler that always loses. Democritus shouted at him and said that a mere iron adventurer couldn't defeat his alchemy beasts. Angered by Merlin's behavior, Democritus took out his hidden weapon. He tells Merlin that the beasts he defeated were merely present for Lady Asmodeus, but he has an even stronger creation, whose power is unmatched. But after hearing this, Merlin couldn't control his laugh, as Democritus was the same alchemist, who wants to marry Asmodeus. This made Democritus angry, because Merlin was taking Asmodeus' name with disrespect. Merlin tells Democritus that he knows Asmodeus, so his romantic pursuit is pointless. This confused Democritus, as he asked Merlin if Lady Asmodeus is already spoken for. To which, Merlin made a symbol from his hand and said that Asmodeus is the dangler. But Democritus couldn't believe that Lady Asmodeus, whose beauty eclipses all other women, is a male. Merlin said that Asmodeus is a bastard who has fooled countless men, but Democritus was not accepting this and called him a liar. He then blows his whistle, which summoned a coffin, and with just one look, Johnson realized that there's something unimaginable inside that coffin. And after looking what's inside the coffin, Johnson got terrified, as he had seen that face in the ancient text. It's one of the 4 heroes of the previous kingdom. Democritus laughed and shouted that after finding the remains of Calzona and Saint Ice Dragon, he melded the two and created something even stronger than them. Merlin was trying to remember where he has seen that face when Calzona opened her eyes and got angry after taking a look at Merlin. Merlin then remembered that she's the same old lady that he defeated before. She attacked Merlin with lightning speed, but Merlin killed her in an instant. But to his surprise, even after getting killed, she regenerated. Democritus laughed and explained that not only does she possess the power to destroy a nation, but she also has an immortal body. Merlin thought it's a bit interesting, as he might be able to play with her a bit longer. Merlin said that if he can't defeat her with one slash, all he needs to do is just slash twice. And as the Merlin was battling Calzona, Kyle picked up Johnson and ran from there, as they will only be a hindrance to Merlin. At the same time, Dennis and his men arrived and find Cecilia and Alice. Cecilia ordered Dennis to take the villager to safety and explained that Alice needs treatment. She also tells him to pick up Alice's pendant, as she keeps it on her at all times. He picked up the pendant and gets shocked after seeing a symbol on it. He looked at Alice and wondered if she really is the one. Meanwhile, Merlin was fighting Calzona. He killed her several times, but she regenerates every time. Democritus laughed and told Merlin that none of his attacks could kill Calzona. She then attacked Merlin with her full power, but Merlin easily cancelled the attack and destroyed her completely. Everyone outside saw Merlin's attack and gets terrified after looking at its power. Merlin smiled and said that no matter how immortal, it can't come back if it's been turned to ashes. But Democritus still laughed as Calzona started to regenerate again. He then insulted Merlin and said that even though Merlin has a legendary weapon, but it's useless against his alchemy beast. After hearing this, Merlin put his sword back and decides to fight Calzona with his hands. He punched Calzona and thought of using her as a punching bag, and after toying with her for a while, he killed her. And when she was about to regenerate again, Merlin slashed her core. Merlin already knew that every time she resurrected, she used that core as its center. Democritus was in despair as he put everything into creating that core. It's smaller than a speck of dust and even harder than a diamond. Yet, Merlin was able to accurately slice it. Merlin looked at him and said he already told him that he's the demon king of the first demon palace. Democritus asked why Merlin did this to him, as he has never done anything to anger Merlin. To which Merlin replied that even though he never angered him, but his head is worth a lot of money. And as Merlin was about to kill Democritus, he pissed his pants. Merlin paused for a second, but still strike him. But in that 1 second, Democritus managed to substitute his body and escaped. Everyone outside the research facility then noticed that the whole mountain collapsed. Cecilia is worried about Alice and explains everything that happened to Kyle. Merlin also came back and Kyle asked him if he managed to defeat the immortal beast. Merlin replied that even though he killed the beast, but Democritus got away. He then looked at Alice and realized that she used the dragon's power again. But more importantly, he asked Cecilia about the reward, as he didn't capture the alchemist. Cecilia said even though the alchemist got away, but he still destroyed the beast and the alchemist's lab, so she will give him 200,000 gold as agreed. Merlin gets happy and thought that after returning the debt and paying the rent, he will bet all the remaining money on Richard to make a huge profit. Johnson was worried and said that the situation is still troublesome because the alchemist can be back again in the future. But Merlin thought that the situation might be troublesome for humans, but if he angered the demons, then his death is certain. A few days later, in the fourth demon palace, Democritus was waiting for Lady Asmodeus to arrive. He thought that even though his beasts got killed, he still had the dragon's blood left over so he can make something stronger. Then, the ruler of lust, the demon king of the fourth palace, Asmodeus, arrived. He thanked all his followers for their support and was about to start his passionate dance. But suddenly, he was interrupted by Democritus. The demons there were confused as a human was addressing Master Asmodeus as lady. Democritus proposed Asmodeus and offered to marry him. Asmodeus realized that he is that idiot alchemist who wanted to marry him. Asmodeus refused his offer and said that he can't marry him. Democritus asked Asmodeus that if it's because he's a human. But Asmodeus lifted her dress and showed him that he's a man, and that's why he can't marry him. The other demons called Democritus an idiot, as everyone in the demon realm knows that the ruler of lust is a male. Democritus fell into despair and cursed Asmodeus for toying with his affections. But Asmodeus smiled and said that he never said that he's a female, so he can't call that toying. Angered by Asmodeus' words, Democritus blew his whistle and created a fire dragon, and ordered it to kill every demon. But Asmodeus changed into his battle form and easily defeated it. He explained that he excels at spiritual attacks, so it's useless to attack him with a weak spirit. He added that even though his beasts give the church some trouble, but it is a complete joke to the demon rulers. The other demons, who were angered as Democritus interrupted their master's performance, killed him. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like,